There it is.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to FL Teams. I am Jeff Macolino, and I am joined by the newest member of the FL Teams family, the Cranky fan, here. And we thought we'd get together. Now there's two FL Teams Rays podcasters. And it's the midseason. I guess we missed it by one game, but it was a good game to get in before we did this.
Sure.
um, the Rays sit 82 games, 45 and 37. So if you look at the actual midway point, they were on pace for 88 wins. So here we are. If you don't know, I host a mostly weekly podcast called Bolts and Bats in the Bay, where I talk about the Lightning and the Rays. Mostly a recap of things that happened in the past week and kind of a preview of the week ahead. And the Cranky Fan podcast just started, depending on when this gets posted, July 7th was the inaugural episode. Glad to have you on board, and I enjoyed your first episode. Tell the FL Teams audience what they can expect from the Cranky Fan podcast.
Yes. So I am a displaced Floridian living in New York City. So while I am a Giants and a Knicks fan, and I actually have another podcast, a Just Giants podcast, where I talk about the Giants, this is my opportunity and outlet to talk about the Rays, my Florida Gators, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Basically, if you, my Twitter feed at the Cranky Fan, I've become kind of known for just ranting during games, not necessarily live tweeting everything that happens, but basically my reactions to things that go on. And I originally started tweeting, years ago just to save my marriage because my wife was getting sick of me screaming and yelling at the TV all the time at, something stupid that Joe Madden would do, or now that Kevin Cash does. So instead of just yelling at air and ending up having to sleep on the couch, I found the magic Twitter and just started getting my thoughts out there, and, makes me feel better after doing it, and keeps my marriage nice and healthy. So it's kind of morphed into, I've been a Rays season ticket holder for the last 14 years. I've been there since day one. Actually, was there from before day one. We had a deposit for when the San Francisco Giants were supposed to move to St. Pete. Went down to St. Petersburg to watch the St. Pete Devil Rays, the Class A team, play at Al Lang before they started. Was there at day one in 1998. And when I moved to New York, just stayed being a Rays fan. So ever since then. So I am the token Rays fan up in the New York City area. I catch a lot of abuse from the people around here. Yankee Stadium, I don't care. We're if you look at the last millennium, our record, our how we've done in the playoffs and World Series is compatible to the team that plays up here as well. So we'll talk a lot about the Rays. We'll talk a lot about the Gators, the Lightning in season, but just an opportunity just to, not, I'm an analytics guy, but it's really more about editorial and just my comments and my thoughts. So just try to have fun with it. And we'll have guests, we'll have, people who follow me, other podcast hosts on there. It'll be a good time. So I'm thankful for FL Teams giving the opportunity, and looking forward to working with you and the rest of the gang as we go through the season. I think you froze.
Can you see these?
Oh, you froze. Okay, you're back.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. These I don't know if you recognize these. These are a little before my time, but I got them from my dad. These are postcards that you were supposed to sign to send to the San Francisco Giants chairman.
Oh, yeah. I remember those.
All of those guys to get the baseball team in Tampa Bay.
Oh, it was the biggest screw job in the history of sports, what happened with us with the Giants. They were signed, sealed, delivered. The deal was done. Vince Damoli had a deal to move them. And Bill White, the National League president at the time, who played for the Giants at one point and the Cardinals, basically went to San Francisco and said, keep keep raising your offer, keep raising your offer. They finally had an offer that was comparable to Namoli. Namoli wanted to raise his offer. He said, no, you can't. They accepted the offer. They stayed, and we got hosed. And that's where the antitrust exemption lawsuit started, which ended up ultimately having another round of expansion. But, oh, yeah, I remember going to a Tampa Bay Storm game the night they announced it, and they said, welcome to the Thunderdome, the new home of the Tampa Bay Giants, and the place going nuts. So,
yeah, that's
who knows what would have, the butterfly effect would have happened if the Giants actually moved here. I mean, would the Giants have signed Barry Bonds?
right.
Maybe not. I mean, would attendance been any different not being an expansion team as opposed to being, an existing team? Well, maybe not. We don't know. Would I have met my wife, who is a San Francisco Giant fan, and when I met her, my hook was, "Oh, you're a Giant fan. I have to buy tickets off of you." Probably not. So maybe things all worked out in the end this way.
Yeah, we're happy with our team right now.
Sure.
This season, I've described it as a roller coaster, but overall, full picture when you talk about the Rays day to day or week to week, sometimes there's a lot of ebbs and flows this season, but overall, like I mentioned, where they stand midseason, on pace for 88 wins, on pace to be one of the wild card teams. Boy, the AL East is just ridiculously stacked, which not like that's new, but if they can get through the second half as well as they did the first half, I think they are going to be one of the teams that gets one of the wild card spots. Overall, considering all of the injuries, and we'll break down a little bit more every little thing, but overall, I guess I would say I can't be upset at the first half that the Rays put forward, considering all of the bodies we didn't have, all the bats out of the lineup, all of the arms out of the rotation and the bullpen throughout. Well, still right now, although I won't complain at all about our current rotation, but
No.
Overall, can't complain too much about where we stand halfway through. On my end, what do you think?
Well, it's the product of being a small market team with low revenue. The teams like the Yankees have the luxury of having a bench where they can spend, $5-6 million on a guy. They have the luxury of taking a flyer on someone like a Rizzo or, someone who might be washed up and just, sticking him on the bench. And maybe if it works out, great. If not, oh well. I mean, it'd be wonderful if Joey Wendell was still on this team to be that utility guy that Taylor Walls is now, or Vidal Brujan is, or was before they sent him down. But we're not going to spend the money for a guy like him who's not going to play every day. And unfortunately, we took a gamble that we can get by with a bench of guys that are AAA guys, and hopefully they can make that leap, or even if they're not ready, they would take that leap. And unfortunately, that didn't work. I mean, Taylor Walls is a AAA hitter. He's never going to be a major league hitter. Brett Phillips, as much as we love him, is an iconic Rays guy that's, going to go down in history with the Rays, but he's not a major league hitter. He's a guy that there's a place for guys that came on a roster, late inning defensive help, pinch running. But when he has to play in the lineup 4 and 5 days a week, you're going to have a guy hitting 180 who goes over 40 in stretches. So, it's a situation we're in. You hope that the injuries don't happen as badly as they did. And unfortunately, when you lose Lau, when you lose Wander, when you lose, Ji-Man Choi is always out of the lineup. These are the bats. We lost a lot of the power from last year by trading Austin Meadows. This is what happens, and unfortunately, and it's just the fact that we have such fantastic starting pitching. Our bullpen has been good enough considering the injuries and considering the mismanagement of Kevin Cash with said bullpen. But you're happy to be in a position where you are now. We're going to be getting healthier in the second half goes along, and just got to stay in fighting distance. Don't worry about the Yankees. Worry about the Red Sox. Worry about Toronto, worry about Minnesota, and just hang around. That's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, and it's the power aspect of it. Brandon Lau really has been. I don't know. He was the guy, I would say, coming into the season who, especially after trading Meadows, who I thought was going to have to carry the weight of it, and his back literally crumbled under the pressure.
Well, it's not just him. I mean, you're expecting, Mike Zunino had 20-something homers last year.
Yeah.
Randy Arozarena had over 20-something homers. And Randy started off, horribly in April. He was nothing, get like a homer and 5 RBIs at the end of April. So, that's the production we weren't getting for, okay, I get it. Zunino had a career year last year. He's always going to have a low batting average, always going to have a high whiff rate and everything, but he can run into one and run into them quite a bit. And now that he's out probably for the year, it's a tough, Yankees are so good right now, their offense, because at any moment they can hit a 3-run homer.
Mm-hmm.
We have to manufacture runs, and we have to do it the hard way. And 5 of your 9 guys are hitting under 200 because they're not major league hitters. It's that much harder to manufacture runs.
Right. And it's I said I recorded my last podcast and said, I wouldn't count on Brandon Lau coming back at all, with a back injury. And then they announced he's going to start a rehab at Durham and he might come back after the All-Star break. So maybe I reverse jinxed it. But then again,
oops,
his first game today. Now, hopefully this is, as they said, he was hitting the helmet. Hopefully just completely a precaution and nothing
right
to worry about. Shouldn't affect the timeline if that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm glad he's going to Durham. That seems to be a good step. A guy with a back. I mean, the Rays are notoriously safe when it comes to their players' long-term health. Sometimes frustratingly so. Especially with a guy who, frankly, how long before they decide to trade him?
Yeah.
The
other big thing about this lineup that, they've been kind of behind the 8 ball most of the time was that Josh Lowe was counted on to be a bat and be a power bat in this lineup. And to this point, he has not been. He's been awful. I personally think they pulled the plug on him a little too early in April. But, when you're trading in Austin Meadows, you're expecting, besides what you're getting back in return, and, Isaac became kind of this, June phenomenon, but nobody expected that. But the expectation was that Josh Lowe was ready to become your everyday right fielder and provide 20 homers a year. And it's been a struggle for him. I'm not ready to pull the plug on him, permanently just yet, but, we're getting into mid-July now. We're halfway through. We're at game 83, and he's not that's another lack of production right there.
Yeah, and I think I remember them basically directly saying when they traded Meadows, the main reason they felt good doing it was because Josh Lowe, and he's at least in his defense, I've seen glimpses of potential watching him play where it's like, I think he probably will be a major league hitter, whereas a guy like Taylor Walls, I mean, aside from a stray at bat or something, he just is not. He's never going to be.
There's too many guys. I mean, probably if they were to go back in hindsight and do the trade over again, I think they'd have second thoughts. I mean, Isaac aside from what he's doing, it's just, again, you have guys in the lineup that have been rushed up to the major league level, and maybe Josh Lowe is one of those guys that was rushed up. Vidal Brujan has certainly been rushed up here. I mean, you can make an argument that Wander was rushed up here last year. And, maybe his jump from single A up to the majors was pretty quick, throwing in a COVID year. Maybe this should have been the year that Wander's come in. And you could see, you see the potential, but he is not a polished, hitter yet. He's still got to get things figured out as well to become more than just a 270 hitter who's going to hit about 15 homers, to become that elite guy we all think he's going to be. So this, they have success now, and it's kind of like your window for this team is right now, but they're always going to be a team that's looking 2 steps ahead, and they're going to take a step back to move 2 steps ahead, no matter where they are. And again, that's a product of the situation that we're a low, small budget, low revenue team, and those tough decisions are going to be made.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of I think with the offense, it's just a lot of crossing your fingers and hoping guys get healthy. I mean, to me, and then hoping that one of these guys who has not produced to date comes, whether it's Josh Lowe or Francisco Mejia. I mean, I don't care who it is.
But then you're in the backup range again. I mean, Francisco Mejia is a backup catcher. I can't expect anything from backups.
No, I think we got so spoiled last year when our catchers combined led the majors in home runs from it maybe lulled. And the Rays have always considered catcher a defensive position, with really any offense just being a bonus.
Well, last year was, Yarno Navarro all over again, a guy who couldn't hit his weight. Well, he was pretty heavy, so if he was hitting his weight, that'd be pretty good. But he was awful. And all of a sudden in 2008, out of nowhere, he becomes an all-star. I mean, I was at that opening day when we played in Baltimore, Camden Yards, and he was like 3 for 4. I turned to my wife. I'm like, you better save your ticket stub for this one. If Navarro is going 3 for 4, and he hit like almost 300 for the year, and then back to 180 the next year and everything. So we kind of got that lightning in the bottle with Zunino last year. Again, the batting average was low, but the power production, that's what this team needs. They need something from somewhere where they can get a 3-run homer, because we're putting so much pressure on this pitching staff, so much pressure on these starters, way too much pressure on these bullpens. And, every game's a 1-run game, a 2-run game. And you're not going to win all those, if you're not hitting.
No. And the reason the Rays are in the good position they're in my opinion, is all on the starting rotation. Mainly Shane McClanahan, who anyone who doesn't think he should be the Cy Young winner at this point, obviously one bad start and the whole campaign for that can collapse. So we've seen that before. But not with Shane, but James Shields, I think one year had that happen. Mm-hmm. But Corey Kluber has been certainly solid. I think he's pitched exactly to my expectations, to be quite honest.
He's a 4th starter on a very good rotation. And having a guy like that to be your 4th starter. I mean, Corey Kluber on the 2007 Devil Rays is your opening day starter. On this rotation, he's a 4. And you can even make an argument he's a 5 if you want to think about Springs as being ahead of him in the rotation, with guys like Patino on their way back. Boz is working his way back and everything. So when you think about the postseason, and then you go down, to a 4-man rotation or even a 3, all of a sudden a guy like Kluber is one of those guys who, can come in the 3rd inning when you start pulling starters really quickly. It's nice to have guys like that you can pull out. So it's pitching has never been a problem with this team. And I tell everybody every year in April, don't freak out about the bullpen, because, there'll be guys pitching that will be distant memories by the playoffs. And that's kind of where this is kind of sorting out now. I just get so frustrated, with Kevin Cash, that how he continually mishandles this bullpen. And it's something I'm going to hammer over and over and over again, be it on Twitter or on my show. It's like, look who he uses in high leverage spots. I mean, just because a guy is 2 for 9 against someone lifetime, that's way too small of a sample size to have someone coming in an 8th inning spot where you want your best players pitching and playing at the most important parts of games. He does not do that. There's no consistency. And I think his mismanagement of the bullpen has cost this team wins. Enough to catch the Yankees? No. But, something, we're in a battle right now with Toronto and Boston. And that could be the difference between hosting the wild card and being on the road.
I think, and as bad as the offense has been, I think at times I'd argue the bullpen's actually been the weakness for the team. I just don't, now with, especially looking at guys like Fireisen and Kittredge he's out for the season.
Yeah.
Poche has been mostly good. Jason Adams been a very pleasant surprise. Brooks Raley's been mostly good. Am I missing some? I guess.
Well, I mean, that's all good and fine, but something in the 8th inning of a one-run game, there's Matt Whistler throwing his cement mixers. There's Ryan Thompson. There's Ryan Thompson who has no idea where the ball is going when it leaves his hand. And these guys, 9th inning tie game, there's Ryan Thompson. And it's like, I'm just going to turn this off and put on, the news or something because this game's over. And it's so frustrating.
Yeah, the problem is it seems like he is running out of arms to go to. I do agree. I'm sick of seeing Whistler in high leverage situations.
That's my other argument about Kevin Cash. Every single game does not have to have 5-6 relievers. I when I heard, we have 5 games in 4 days coming up against Toronto, who put this team in this situation? You did. And I'm not even talking about starters not going 8 innings. This is 2022. We know how the game is played now, but every reliever doesn't have to come in for an inning, or he comes in with 2 out, gets a 3rd out, and he doesn't start the next inning. I mean, you're getting way, way, way too micromanagey, and then all of a sudden you're out of arms. And it's like, Brooks Raley comes in for 7 pitches again, one of the games, I think, against Toronto, and they take him out, and it's like an hour later in the post-game press conference, well, we ran out of arms. It's like, well, whose fault is that, Kevin? That's you.
Yeah, no, it's hard to I mean, I can't argue with that. I'm concerned that they're in a real rough spot if any of those if they lose any more arms in the bullpen, because a lot of the guy, I think I came to take it for granted that a guy like Sean Armstrong, who hasn't pitched well, but why would I expect him to? Because that's just what the Rays seem to do. They seem to get these guys that just come in and they're pitching, sub 2 ERAs, and they look like, all-star relief pitchers that, got flamed out in every other place they've been, but the Rays knew how to.
It's a bit of a chicken and the egg thing too. It's like, if this offense can, generate another run per game, then all of a sudden you're not having these high leverage spots in every single game. And it's not,
Right.
So it's like, okay, if you bring Whistler in a 7th inning of the game, it's like, well, why is it a tie game in the 7th? It's like, okay, well, the situations when you would best use him, you're up by 3, you're down by 3. That's when you use a guy like Whistler or Thompson or something. But we don't have any of those opportunities. How many games do we have there? It's a 1-run game, 2 or 4, low scoring. The pitching staff keeps these games, keeps us in these games because of the low score. But the margin for error is tiny. And when you have a guy who's not that good, who has to, be in that spot, the likelihood of success is not really there. But to answer what you said, the bullpen to me is not as much of a problem. Again, as this team so far has, again, had a lot of guys that shouldn't be in the lineup playing way too much. Guys that are, again, not only not major leaguers because of their bat, because of their glove. I mean,
yeah.
The defenses and base running on this team has been beyond atrocious. And part of that might be because they are pressing, because runs are so hard to come by on this team. There is no threat of a 3-run homer. So guys are trying to do too much. And some of these guys just not smart at playing a game of baseball. I mean, Randy Arozarena is BJ Upton 2.0. If you watch his game, watch how he plays the outfield. Watch some of the lackadaisical mistakes. And I'm not saying he's lazy. I'm not saying that at all, but just like he just has these brain farts out there on the base paths.
Yeah.
50% of Randy on the base paths is just over aggressiveness. 50% is just plain stupid. Because I think he might be stat chasing a little bit. I mean, definitely was last year trying to get to 2020, where he just takes off to steal just to steal, where it doesn't make any sense, in a game situation. But this team is not a good base running team, and they run themselves out of too many. And again, margin for error in this team is too small that making a mistake, being thrown out of 3rd with none out or something is a killer. And they can't keep doing that.
Yeah, this is a team that cannot afford to give up outs on the base path. Yet, before yesterday's game, guess who leads major leagues in outs they've run into on the base paths?
Yeah.
That's
They're also second in the majors in steals. So I mean,
yeah,
it's the good and the bad, but it's just situational base running and knowing time and place. You do something stupid in the second inning, it's not as bad, or you take a gamble in the second inning, it's not as damaging as in the seventh inning. When you're the number of chances, number of outs you have left. It's
yeah,
just it's been a problem. And again, you have a lot of young guys playing. Vidal Brujan is trying to stay up in the majors. He wants us, and he's going to try to impress. Guys like Taylor Walls, like their time in the majors is short. Brett Phillips, he's going to take the most. He's a very aggressive guy. Even guys like Kevin Kiermaier,
yeah.
they try to make something happen out of nothing, and sometimes it works, but too often it doesn't. And the situation they don't is the problem.
Yeah, and the defense, again, you're playing with a bunch of guys who I think when you've got I looked at the Rays outfield and thought, oh, Rosarena is good enough. He'll make some weird plays, but he'll make some great plays also. Kiermaier and before the season, I thought Manuel Margot would be getting a lot of time in right field or left field potentially. He obviously he was having an all-star type season before his injuries, curtailed that.
Sure.
The infield, Yandy Diaz, we haven't brought him up yet, but he's a guy that he's so underappreciated, I think, for no matter whether he plays first or third, he is always very solid defensively. I can't think, I'm sure he's had a couple errors, but he doesn't make terrible plays in the field almost ever, at least to my memory. He's pretty smart base runner for the most part. He's got one of the most incredible eyes at the plate in the league.
Right.
G-Man Choi, when he's healthy, is pretty solid first baseman. Wander, at certain points has looked like he could be a Gold Glove caliber shortstop. So I thought and the catchers, again, offensive aside, defensively, both of them, especially Zunino, were solid. I thought this was going to be a rotation, defense, and enough hitting to get by. And the defense has really been ugly a lot of games.
Well, I think Taylor Walls was uncharacteristically sloppy in the beginning of the year. He's been playing a lot better defensively, but he was making a lot of errors. And the book on him coming up last year was steady. He may not make this. He's not Ozzie Smith out there, but he's going to make every play that he needs to make. And he wasn't doing that for quite a while. There's been so many different combinations, of playing, Yandy plays third and first. You have Taylor Walls all over the place. You have Brujan all over the place playing different positions. It's just, that can affect you. How many different outfielders do we have played this year? These guys aren't playing every day and in a normal spot. The same lineup every day is not happening, whether it's just Cash just overthinking his lineup or injuries. You have to shuffle guys in and out. So, the defense, again, small margin of error because of the limited offense and the limited potential for the big inning. The defense and the mistakes, they're magnified, and everyone is a much bigger deal than if this team was like, all right, well,
right,
they're going to win 6-1. Okay, we can deal with that. Or even the base running too. It's just because the game is so close and so, every play matters. These are spotlighted and highlighted more.
Right. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's the part of the game that, I personally, I worked for the Rays for a while, and Joe Madden was the guy who spoke so eloquently about, you win games with all of these different things, and his 9=8 thing. I was in the huddle when he talked to the team, and he said, we're going to win 27 more games this year, 9 on offense, 9 on defense, 9 by pitching. We got that much better in each category this offseason with the bats we added with Jason Bartlett, basically was the run prevention part, and the pitching staff, the bullpen. 9 wins from each of those things. We're winning 27 more games. We're going to the playoffs. And that was, again, still, I think a lot of times people overlook, run prevention and run score. They go
Mhm.
together. So, yeah, you're right.
Sure.
I think you get angry. The July 4th game, infuriating, the play Fleming made where he kicked the ball that, should have been a double play. And you think, oh, the defense. And it's like, well, we haven't scored a run today. Why am I
Yeah.
getting so angry? It makes no difference that he just,
Right.
basically gave him another couple. We're not going to score anything anyway.
There is no such thing as a goal differential like in the Premier League in baseball. You lose 1-0 or 30-0. It doesn't matter. And that's why
Right.
these position players who pitch when games get out of hand, ask the Pirates last night. But, it's, I don't know. I think as guys get healthy and you start seeing who the real lineup should be, I think you'll see these things, on the defensive side start to clear themselves out. Again, you're playing with a lot of young guys. It feels like these Rays teams are back of the old days where you have, guys coming up and playing like the Jason Tyners who are not major league players and they have to play and they're hitting 180 and they're making fundamental mistakes in the outfield and on the bases. And I think that's what we've had to deal with. The fact we're on pace for 89 wins, which is exactly what Vegas had us at the beginning of the season, is still pretty remarkable. And I think it's really a testament to the pitching, the starting pitching, and the bullpen as well. And you just got to hope that, one thing we should probably, discuss is what do we do now? Are we buyers? Are we sellers? Are we holders? What do you think? Because I have some definite thoughts.
I think as things stand, we've got to be buyers. How many teams are going to be selling with the extra wild card spots? That's a question. I would love. I mean, adding a bat's hard because they tend to be expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have add a bat if at all possible, like they added Nelson Cruz last year. I don't think they could get someone of that caliber this season. But adding a bat that would just give something. Also, and the Rays do tend to do very well at spotting these guys, getting a bullpen arm or two, especially if, we still only have 3 arms or so that we trust heading down the stretch in the back end of the bullpen. I don't want to go into the playoffs stretch that thin where
Right.
you've got you got Nick Anderson blowing his arm out. Basically, is how I interpreted things a couple of years ago.
Sure, of course.
I don't want
people
to be in that
forget.
scenario.
Yeah, people forget the Blake Snell game. It's like,
Ugh,
who did they
I
bring
don't.
in with Blake Snell they took out? Nick Anderson, his arm is worse than my shoulder is right now, and I can't even move my shoulder. I mean, it was obvious he was shot by game 4. And when you get to game 6 and after I say it was mutinous. To me, it's crime worthy with taking out Blake Snell. And, the Boston Red Sox fired Grady Little after keeping Pedro in, making a mistake in the 2003 ALCS. To me, that was a fireable offense, pulling him at that point. But they brought in Nick Anderson, who was shot, and game over right there. Series over, season over.
Yeah.
I think this team holds because the way I look at it, they're not sellers. I mean, a lot of people are like, well, the chances of selling, it's like, why would you dismantle this team? The window for this team is the next couple of years. And why would I start selling pieces off because of its season that's been derailed by injury? I mean, it wasn't like they constructed this team and it's like, well, this team just isn't good enough. We have fatal flaws with lack of power. I mean, we have lack of power because Brandon Lau is not playing. We have lack of power because Mike Zunino's not playing. We have lack of power because Wander didn't play for a pretty long stretch. Choi hasn't played for big stretches of the season. So to me, it's just like, I don't want to be buyers necessarily because we're starting to dip deeper and deeper into the farm system. And guys, we gave up a haul last year to get Nelson Cruz. The guys that are AAA sort of fringy ready for the majors are obviously not producing right now. So I'm not sure what the market value is for a a Taylor Walls or even a Josh Lowe. I don't know what that value is, and I'm not ready to go to dip into my AA and single A big time prospects because we've been giving a lot of those up already. And this team is not going to get free agents. They're not going to make the big splashy trades. This team, this for sustained success, is going to be building them up through the draft, developing them through their farm system. And if you keep doing that, I mean, if this team, stays put what we have, and they're the third wild card, or they don't make the playoffs this year, coming back next year, we're trotting back most of the same team, a team that came off winning 100 games the year before, still will be right in the mix. So I don't want to screw the near term future by making a run where it may not be in the cards this year because too many people are out and you're trying to replace too much.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And you're right. Next year, you're not only looking at bringing back that. I mean, Shane Boz, especially if you look at his last few starts, so Patino, who you mentioned, we're not getting full seasons from them this year.
Mm-hmm. McClanahan and Rasmussen, and don't forget about Tyler Glasnow.
Yeah, and Rasmussen. I think the big concern I have with him still is just lasting the whole season because he's never pitched this many innings before.
Well, that's the thing. You might see some of these guys starting to get shut down, and just kind of like easing back, and that's okay. I mean, well, again, if this team is serious about making a run, we'll figure it out. If we're kind of on the outside looking in September, I don't think they're going to do everything it takes to make it this year, and that's okay. We reload for next year, and and we go for it again.
Yeah, I would not disagree with that approach. If it doesn't look like it's in the cards, if you look like you're in, I'd say pull every string you can, because the one thing, the playoffs is, I still think baseball not more than football, I guess, but baseball more than any other sport with series play. It's so much of it comes in with who's hot.
It's a crapshoot.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really
it's not
is.
even a question of who's hot. It's you go through one turn of the rotation and each guy doesn't pitch well, series over. I mean,
yeah, or you get, and the Rays do have one of these pitchers this year. You get a guy who can just go 2 starts and just shut the other team completely down.
Yeah,
we've seen it, numerous times with pitchers.
But we saw like last year where something as fluky as a ball bouncing off someone's leg and going over the fence, it could derail a start and could, end everything. So it's one of those things, like it's good and bad. It's like, okay, we're 14 behind the Yankees, but if we meet them in the first round of the ALDS, we're back at 0. And something, again, one turn of the rotation. If everybody pitches well, the whole season is, what's past is prologue. Yeah. These guys don't pitch well. That's that.
Yeah. No. And again, the Rays do have, I think, I guess, to briefly touch on this, I think probably the only guy who's going to be named an all-star, Shane McClanahan. Yeah, a 5-game series, especially if you can line things up where he's starting game 1 and game 5. You got to feel pretty good about your chances in that series, no matter who. Well,
remember the thing is, if we're in the wild card, it's a best of 3.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to get him for 1. But the way it will, I think the way they're doing it is all 3 games are at the home site of the higher seeded team.
Yeah,
without a break. So it's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So the potential is, see, a lot of times wildcard teams used to get screwed because you have to throw either you have to throw them on Sunday to get into the wildcard game, or pitch them on Tuesday in the wildcard game. Then you can't use them again for game 3 potentially. Now with the 1, 2, 3 potential, a couple of days off before you start the ALDS, you could theoretically throw him game 1, and you're a lot better. You're not as much of a disadvantage. I agree with you that I think McClanahan's the only all-star in this team. People have tried to make arguments about like G-Man Choi. No. Isaac, not enough at bats. Jason Adam is nice, but we've had our Lance Carters make the All-Star team where it's just you need someone to be in there. It's really, I always use the test of who in this lineup would be starting for other teams. Like if you combine the Yankees and the Rays, who in our normal starting 9 is starting in the Yankee lineup right now?
Without seeing the Yankees stats, I would have a hard time saying anyone.
I mean, Wander, I guess, but that's maybe more in reputation.
Sure. Wander.
But he's
Yandy
also hitting
Diaz,
2.
I think they'd find a place for. I mean, I'd love the problem with Yandy is he's in the wrong position to make it All-Star.
Yeah, I'm not even talking All-Star. I'm talking about just who would start on the Yankees. I mean, is he starting over LeMahieu? No.
No. I think you'd have a hard time keeping a guy with his on-base percentage out of your lineup, though.
But who's he replacing? I mean, if you're looking at, that's the problem. It's like, even the Red Sox lineup, again, where are these guys playing and who are they supplanting? I mean, is Kevin Kiermaier playing over Jackie Bradley Jr.?
No. Kevin Kiermaier. If you're really just focused on run prevention, I'm sure Kevin Kiermaier could find his way into a lineup.
He's a better defender, but I mean, when I'm talking just lineup and like who's hitting and stuff.
No.
I mean, against Toronto, like who on the Rays lineup is starting in Toronto?
Toronto might be the hardest.
Yeah. So it's not even a question of all-stars on this team. And, I don't care about all-stars. I mean, I'm not 9 years old anymore. I don't. Yeah. It's, I almost rather nobody goes to the all-star game and everybody just rests for that week because we need the rest. I mean, the all-star game has completely lost any impact now that there's interleague and we've had that for 20 years. And, it's a participation trophy where everybody has to play. They don't play to win. So what do I care? So.
Yeah, no, it's nice to get the recognition.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
fine.
Aside from that, it really doesn't affect the season at all.
Thank God they got rid of that. That was one of the dumbest things in sports.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd say is, not that we'd have a guy in there except for maybe Paredes. But the home run derby, you don't want your players to be in that for sure. No. that can mess you up for weeks.
I mean, someone like Randy would be interesting because, when he was on that hot streak in 2020, he was hitting some missiles. I mean, I was at all of those World Series games in Texas, and he hit a couple because where we were sitting, some of the shots he hit were just these rockets. And when he gets on a streak, again, another reason he's BJ Upton 2.0. I mean, two of the in Rays history, guys that have been, streaky and have been on complete fire are BJ and Randy. Legendary postseason streakiness.
Yeah. Yeah. I was upset last year that Zunino didn't get picked because
for home run contest.
Yeah, for 2 reasons. One, he can hit some bombs. Also, get the batting practice pitcher, get him some strikeouts. He's going to swing and miss it.
Yeah, but that'd be fantastic.
Last thing, key to the second half, whether it be a player, is there one guy or one thing that you think is really, if this team is going to get to 88, 89, 90 wins, 90 is probably a good goal to try to shoot for. Is there one key thing you think, or is it really just the conglomeration of all of them?
Get healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. I mean, again, like I said, I don't think this front office is going to, extend and going to, trade away any more future assets to try to a short-term gain. I think they know the situation this team is in this year. If this team is going to make, forget the Yankees. I mean, I'm not buying that team's 120 win team, but I'm also not expecting to come back from 14 back as we get into early July. So forget them. But to be a wild card team, and not only to be a wild card team, to be a higher ranked wild card team, so maybe hosting that series, the difference is being healthy. And you could see it already with this lineup. Guys are coming back. And you're seeing, you saw it in Toronto and you saw it in Boston. They're starting to hit. And you take pressure off this pitching staff. This team is very tough to beat a 9 in and 9 out basis. They're not going to hit 100 wins like last year. I mean, 90, a 10 game difference considering all of the injuries they had this past year it's a testimony to their front office. I'm not going to go the Kevin Cash route and say it's on him because, I do not believe managers make that much of an overall difference, secondary to talent. But that's it to me. The simple thing is just get healthy. Don't count on a deal. Don't count on this mystery guy in AAA who's going to come up and save the day. It's just, let's get these bullpen guys healthy. Let's get, the Margot's healthy. Let's, Zeno, if he does come back, Brandon Lau, if he comes back. That way we don't have to rely on these scrubs that are, they're 4A guys who are probably, not yets or never will be's. That's the key. And if it doesn't work out this year, we go back to spring training. We showed, we were in the Freddie Freeman sweepstakes last year. We were actually trying to, because you got to remember something, and fans don't think about this yet. This is 2022. 5 years from now, we're out of the Trop. There will be a new stadium somewhere that will be generating revenues. So you could start thinking about, we'd sign a guy like Evan Longoria and backload his contract. So when you get to year 7, 8, 9, that's where the big money comes in, and that's where we trade him. Now, if you do that, you don't have to worry about trading these guys. You can keep them. You could think about the free agent moves and things. So expect to start seeing the Rays starting to spend more and more in each offseason because they know the money's coming. It's not down the road or whatever. I mean, there is light at the end of the tunnel, wherever that gets. And we could talk about that for a separate episode of where it should be and the stadium saga and all that. But there is hope coming.
Yeah, no, well said. And they did show a lot this. I'm still shocked that they were really in the Freddie Freeman sweepstakes. They were not just casually inquiring. They were aggressive.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, let's wrap this thing up. You've now got a couple of different podcasts where you can catch some Rays information. Also, stay tuned for FL Teams Live wherever you watch that. Subscribe to the YouTube. Subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts. Again, Bolts and Bats in the Bay, the Cranky Fan podcast. And we also have High Heat in the 305. Another new podcast that came out. That's Miami sports stuff.
We may have to have a battle royal with those guys and have interesting debates.
Good buddy Jeremiah Hensley's got his Fins in the Sea podcast. We're growing and growing here at FL Team. So make sure you follow us on all the social medias and subscribe everywhere you can. And we'll keep bringing you this top shelf content. And by the way, here's my favorite piece of sports memorabilia.
Jason Tyner, the bobblehead after they traded him.
Yes, the bobblehead that never got released.
That's like finding the ET video game from Atari from back in 1983. Like you just don't see those anymore. We thought they were all sent out to New Mexico and buried, but
I was instructed to take a box of these to the dumpster when I worked for the Rays, and I didn't know what was in the box, so I decided to check. I rescued a few of these guys.
That's fantastic.
All right, everyone. Stay tuned for FL Teams, and we will see you next time.
Go Rays.